Hey guys, it's Daniel Faust, Learn and Live. Hope you guys having a great second week of May. And in the second week with Learn and Live and with War Hero to Superhero, we enter the living room. And today's topic is living room training your kids for the Ready Player One generation. If you've not seen this movie, it's based like in 2040s and whatnot, and most of the people are strapped fiscally. And kind of like we're doing this COVID-19 world, that we are isolating and getting away. It's not just more of social distancing, but there was nothing left in that world. So the only thing that was left is virtual reality. And as COVID-19 presses on, our culture is changing, our schools are changing, and the economy is fastly morphing. Right now, 1.5 billion kids across the world are out of school. That's like 19% of the population. And our kids will be in a world that no one will recognize, but we're going to need to go over and adapt. We've adapted in the sense of coming home. We've gone over in the sense of becoming roles that we never thought of. And in this week, we want to empower you with 5 tactics to help your kids to transform to superheroes so that they can thrive in this Ready Player One world. We want you to not go over and be culture shocked and then just things happen and going over and adjust. But today, specifically in our main topic, we're going to talk about how to help your kids' education while they stay at home. Because again, as I stated before, roughly 19% of the world's population is out of school because of COVID. And what I mean is the world population, roughly 1.5 billion kids are now at home. That's 19% of the world population that is there. And that's our kids. So they're home with us. And in the couple of days that transformation happened in each state, in each country, in each city, we went from a mom and dad or mom or dad. And now we went to parent, teacher, entertainer, tutor, and so many other roles that we came into. And as military veterans and first responders, we were used to the civilian sector going over and taking on some of those roles. And now we are balancing multiple roles in multiple ways. And most of us, even me included, when we first started out, are not equipped, and we're still not equipped, to facilitate or instruct school. So I wanted to go over and equip you from my education and training mindset on how to go over and get your kids to go over and to thrive. So our first tactic of the week is to go over is what type of learner is your child or your children? Because pretty much if you don't understand your child's learning style or styles, and there's actually 4 and they usually rank in order, but we each have a primary style of learning, then it might be difficult for some kids to be at home. It might be really easy for other kids to going home, especially in this online world. But if we don't understand that, then we can't be good para teachers until this virus opens up. Or maybe, you never know, it might not go back. People have different speculations. And so this resource article and resource information is provided to you by www.blog.prezi.com. The 4 different types of learners and what they mean to your presentation. So we are presenting either in a digital or in a physical format to our kids, and we need to implement the different styles. So each kid learns differently, and you can't just use one method for all. And I have 4 kids ranging from 10 to 12. And yes, instructional design needs to go over and have a certain format, but when they're going over and learning and how they're going engaging, you need to go over, and each time that you're building lessons, add those elements in there, or to go over, and if you have a one-on-one time with the individual child, that you need to go over and adjust to their learning style. So let's go into it and find out what learning styles there are. And what we're benchmarking off is the VOC model, which speaks on the 4 different types. And we're going to jump into each one. So if you feel like as you're listening and you're jumping in and you're like, that ain't my kid's style, well, then stay on till the end of the video. We highly recommend you always watching all our videos from start to finish. But this particular one, unless you are fast forwarding it, which it's alive right now, you'll miss the information. And you can always look up the VOC model to go over and to do more research. So the first one is visual. Obviously, you're looking at me, you're hearing me and whatnot, and you're seeing the situation. And if your kid is a visual learner and that's their primary learning language, then they prefer to see info and to visualize the relationship between the ideas. So they need to go over and see it in their mind or see it in their face to go over and like, what's the difference between a pen and a pencil? They both are writing implements. and you show them the items to go over and show the differences in that regard. For them, you want to go implement charts, diagrams, infographics, illustrations, handouts, and videos. So for this particular realm, this would be very easy for them to go over and learn about a visual thing. They want to go over and see the whole entire picture. And there's a couple questions I challenge you to go over and ask your kid, or go over and have them watch the video themselves and go over. Or you can go to verywellmind.com for these questions. The first question is, do you need to see information to remember it? Do they need to go over and visually see it, or did they do it in a different modality? So if they need to say, hey, I need to see this written down. I need to see this on a board. I need to see this on a video. Then that's probably leaning towards visual. Also, do you pay close attention to body language? Did they go over and process as they're seeing? Do they need to see the person? Do they need to see the body language of the person going over and teaching? Because some of your students might not need to go and do that. Also, another question to go ask them is is art, beauty, and aesthetics important to them? Because if it's important to them, art, beauty, aesthetics, and whatnot, then more than likely they are a visual person and they visually go over and learn. And the last question is, does visualizing information in your mind help you remember it better? Do you need to go over and visualize it to see the process, to see the information? Do you see the page as a visual learner? I know for myself, I can do math in my head. I'm very visual. I can go see it to a certain point. Or if I need to go over and write it down in a sense, and then I visually see it, that's when I go and remember it. The next learning style is auditory. So again, this video has a lot of power in it, and that's why video is very powerful. It's got the visual that you go over and see me with the body language that we talked about, and they also got the auditory is the words that you're going over and hearing. And what their primary language, if this is their primary language, is learn by hearing, that they literally put on the headphones, listen to a podcast, go over and go through audiobooks, listen to lectures. That's the way they go over and learn. And again, questions to ask your kiddos to go over to see if they are a primary auditory learner is, do you prefer to listen to class lectures rather than reading from textbooks? If they hate reading and they love for you to read to them, or they go over and they love audiobooks compared to regular books, or they rather not listen to the video, they rather just go jump into a pair of headphones and their favorite device, that might be leaning towards an auditory. Also, does reading out loud help the member remember? Does it help you remember the information better? So if your kid is going over and if you're reading out loud to them, or if they're reading out loud the item and you're thinking, boy, that's annoying, because I know some of my kids have to read out loud to go over and do that, that they might remember auditory that particular way, that they have to keep saying it over and over and over again. Also, would you prefer to listen to a lecture or go over a podcast rather than looking at notes? If they're the person that goes over and takes a book or takes notes that they've written down, and they just write it because they have to, because they're in the classroom, but they're not going over and processing it. But if they have an opportunity to go over and to record the message or the lecture, then that might be something that your kid's going to go over and thrive with, and it might be more of an auditory learner. And another one is, does songs help you remember information? So if they like singing, they like dancing, that type of thing, and they like to make songs and rhymes, and that's how they remember. If it worked in elementary school, it also can work in middle school and also in high school. They might think of it as songs. You know, when I was in electronics high school, I can't say the song or rhyme, but we had to remember the color code. And when you remember the color code, it was kind of offensive, but it was in a sense of a song, but you remembered the color code of the resistors to go over and to work in electronics. Because if you don't know your color bands, that means you don't know what resistors that you're grabbing and what you're putting into the circuit. The third learning style is reading and writing. So they like to go over and see words and text. They like to go over and to process information. And again, questions to go over and to ask your kiddos is, do you find reading your textbook to be a great way to learn new information? So they're the one that reads the textbook cover to cover. They don't go skim through it. An auditory person skims through it to go over and just get the information they need. More of a reader and writer has to go through that. Me, I process visually first and then reading, writing in second. For me, I'm like, if it ain't written down, usually I don't go over and process it. Me and my wife had that today, and she's like, well, Hope, my youngest child, has this time at this. She's like, I told you. I'm like, yeah, you auditorily told me. But the thing is that if it's not written down, more than likely I'm not going to go remember. Go over and send me a text so I can read it and process it, or go over and write it down on the schedule. Next question to ask your child is, do you take lots of notes in class or while reading? So if you see the person reading and they're going over and writing, or if they're in the classroom and they're copiously going over taking notes, and they do it, not because they're told, but because they want to, then they're probably more of a reading and writing learner. Another question to ask them is, do they enjoy making lists, reading definitions, and creating presentations? For me, I love doing all that stuff. I did that today to go over and to program this live. I enjoy making lists, to getting things done. I do love reading definitions. Oxford Dictionary. Now, I'm not sponsoring them, but if they want to, I would love to sponsor them, because I love definitions. And Oxford Dictionary is way more powerful than Webster. Now, you choose your choice of dictionary, but that's what I like. And then creating presentations. They're the ones that like to have that, in front of them to go over and to present. They like that type of learning. And the last question for this particular learning style is, do you like when teachers use overheads or handouts? So overheads is an old word of basically presentations right in front. It's PowerPoint. Overheads, it used to have a light, and it used to have a little transparency, and it would project overhead, in those old school flimsies, and then also the film strips that we used to do. So this person that wrote this article from this website, was probably a little dated and probably between my age and older, but it still goes over in hand in hand. If it's a handout or a presentation and they like to have those notes in that particular regard, then they're probably more reading and writing. Now, last and certainly not least is our hands-on kinesthetic learners. For these particular people, and I think my wife primarily, but my first daughter, Faith, kind of leaned towards this particular realm. Touching or doing learners. This is the type of people that they have to physically do it, or they physically have to touch it. It's got to be tactile in that particular regard to go over and to learn. So for them, IKEA directions, they follow it. If they get lost, they don't go over and do that. And it's the same thing if they're not doing the project and they're just listening and they're in the classroom, it might be really difficult for them to go over and learn. So the first question you might want to go ask is, do you like tasks that involve directly manipulating objects or materials? So if they're like, hey, I like cooking class, I like art class, I like when I get my hands in dirty, and then I like classes that go in the lecture and then go into practice and whatnot. So they go into theory and then they go into application. Another question you might need to ask your kid, or maybe observe on this one, is it hard to sit still for a long time? So I can say that right now that my oldest son is probably kinesthetic and visual learner, maybe a mixture of auditory, not say more visual and kinesthetic. Is it hard for them to sit down for a long time? Dinner, barely can sit. Going over in classes, barely can sit. And then when you ask him to finally go over and you let him stand, he then wants to sit. It's like a constant roll. So more than likely, he's probably a kinesthetic learner. Going from there, do you naturally excel in tasks like painting, cooking, mechanics, sports, woodworking, those types of things that are typically hand-on, shop-oriented, real-world pottery, those types of things? Like when this logo got created for our company, my wife went over and did this. So I know my wife is hands-on kinesthetic learner, because she did this basically tracing a logo from our digital side and free-handed this pretty much on its own. So we didn't even get this professionally done. She did this work. We're eventually going to get it professionally done, but she is hands-on learner. So very beautiful logo to go over and get done. The next question you want to ask one of your children to figure out their kinesthetic learning is, do you need to practice something in order to learn it? Do they have to go over and have that repetition? The visual learner might see it once or twice and boom, they know it. Other person might need to practice it out. So in summary, these are the 4 styles of learning. And one of the key things you want to understand, and if you might be questioning, and again, this is always a dialogue, never a monologue, is we are not locked. Bondage, handcuffs, we are not locked into one style. but we tend to lean towards one style compared to another. So, they just recently added the fourth learning style. It used to just be visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So if you went like 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, I'm highly visual first, I'm auditory second, and then I'm kinesthetic third. But now that they've added a fourth learning style, reading and writing, I would be visual first, reading and writing second, auditory third, and then kinesthetic. And you can go find this out even sometimes by experiments, like when you teach somebody how to drive. And I didn't learn this until my late 30s, mid 30s, is that I didn't know my auditory was so low until someone tried to start giving me direction while I was driving the car. And I got so confused, my visual cut out. I was listening auditorily, and then I stopped processing, and I almost dropped a pallet, almost crashed into an aircraft. This was military work and whatnot. And then with the kids, anytime they get loud in the car, I just stop processing visually information. I'm such a visual processor and reading, writing processor. I got to have little to no auditory, because the auditory, it takes so much energy for me to process auditorily that my visual and my reading and writing cuts out, and I don't remember jack. So again, this is one of the things that we want to equip you today to turn your kids into a superhero in this COVID-19 world and in a real player one world, because that's what we go over and see, is that most people are probably, we probably will never go back to the same. Even if we go back and they say 50 people like it was before, school population's over 50. So we want to be prepared and help you guys equip into tactics to go over and to help you go over and thrive. So our superhero challenge to you is to Google the VARKS model, test, or assessment for you and your children to do. And the reason why we say both is because if you're a visual learner, you're going to try to teach visually. But if your son or daughter or kids are auditory learners, you're going to have to pivot. And vice versa, that if you go over and you're an auditory learner, you're going to try to teach and tutor auditorily. And if your child's a visual learner, you're going to have to learn to go over and adapt. Now, this is more for your kid than it is for you. But if you're the instructor, either if you're teaching reading or art or science or helping them in math and whatnot, it's definitely going to help you to go over and to be that tutor, to be that facilitator. Whoops, I shouldn't be showing that. Tutor and facilitator more than anything else. And when you understand each other's learning styles, teaching and facilitating will become easier. So, because our world is the chance, this not just this week, but a good start to go over and to empower our kids, your kids, overall kids to thrive. Again, 1.5 billion kids. And again, this is an estimate off a blog. 1.5 billion kids are not at school right now. And yes, summer is fastly approaching in Arizona, it's right now, and then most of the nation will be in 2 to 4 weeks. But we want to go over and to thrive. So that is pretty much our quick and down and dirty lesson on basically, again, coming back from the living room, training your kids for a ready player one generation. And I want to thank you guys for joining. And if you haven't already, us as War Hero to Superhero are doing a virtual summit with the Easy Way Network. So if you've not looked at our current wall and also the ticker that's on the bottom, that you have an opportunity to go to this virtual summit with 30 powerful speakers, including myself, going over and helping you transform your brick and mortar type mentality and also business, depending if it's just a virtual business or an actual brick and mortar, to a transformative digital powerhouse. And you get to connect with us and 30 other powerful speakers like Sharon Lecter, the guy from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, one of the female actors from Terminator 3. Unfortunately, I don't know all the names yet, but Eric Zuli is going to be there, one of the hosts from the Easy Way Network, and you can be able to connect in those opportunities. And if you sign up before end of day tomorrow, it's free. After that, it's going to fee. So I would highly recommend to go over and to sign up now and get the event for free. And then we personally are giving away $250 gift card once 1,000 registrants sign up under the referral code War Hero to Superhero. You can see in the ticker down at the bottom. So if you wanted to go to this virtual summit and you've been on the fence and you're wrestling and you're at work and everything else, sign up now. I mean, if you want to pay a fee, wait until Wednesday. That's your choice. I always want to empower you, whatever choice you go over and have. But if I was sitting in your shoes, free 2-day event, streaming, great opportunity, networking, connecting, changing your business from brick and mortar to digital transformation, plus a $250 gift card once we get 1,000 registrants, I would sign up today. I mean, if I could give myself back the $250, I would. And again, this $250 gift card is coming from me once I have 1,000 registrants under there. So you just go to that Easy Way live events link, you register, you put War Hero to Superhero, you get put in there. And then once we get 1,000 registrants, we'll give away that $250 gift card. It'll come directly from me to you. So very exciting. Join us tomorrow in another tactic to go over and help you train your kids for the Ready Player One generation and help you go over and thrive. We'll check that comment real quick. Hey, Ginger, thanks for joining. Awesome person that's always been regularly connecting with us. So thank you for that comment. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to go. You guys have a great day. Check you out tomorrow again in the living room, training your kids for the Ready Player One generation. If you watch us in the live, tag live. If you watch us in the replay, tag replay. Love for you to go over and share. And check us out on Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. PST on the Easy Way Network on your favorite streaming opportunity to go learn the 2 questions that are going to go transform your living room forever. That's the episode this week. All right. Thanks. You all have a good day. All right.